Spain's vast empire spanned continents from the Americas to Europe, and its reach even extended into Asia. While many people are familiar with Spain's conquests in the Americas, fewer are aware of the significant role that the Philippines played in the history of the Spanish Empire. The Philippines served as Spain's primary outpost in Asia, a strategic link between the Americas and Asia that would shape both the region and Spain's global ambitions for over 3 centuries. In this video we'll explore the fascinating history of Spain's empire in Asia, focusing on the Philippine connection and its lasting impact on both Spain and Southeast Asia. 1. The Spanish arrival in the Philippines, a strategic move. In 1521, Ferdinand Magellan, the Portuguese explorer sailing under the Spanish flag, was the first European to reach the Philippines. Magellan's expedition, while disastrous for him, he was killed in the Battle of Mactan, marked the beginning of Spain's interest in the region. Spain recognized the Philippines' strategic location as a gateway between the East and West, connecting China, Japan, and the Southeast Asian archipelago with the trade routes of the Pacific Ocean. The Philippines, with its network of islands, provided an ideal base for trade, military presence, and missionary activity in Asia. However, it was not until 1565, under the leadership of Miguel López de Legazpi, that Spain formally established its first permanent settlement in the Philippines, setting the stage for over 300 years of colonial rule. 2. The Manila Galleon trade, a global trading network. One of the most significant features of Spain's rule in the Philippines was the development of the Manila Galleon trade. This trade route, which operated from 1565 to 1815, was crucial in connecting Asia and the Americas. Spanish ships, known as galleons, would travel from the Philippines to Acapulco, Mexico, carrying valuable goods like silk, spices, and porcelain from China and other parts of Asia. The galleon trade also brought silver from the Americas to Asia, particularly to China, where it became the currency for trade. The route created a massive flow of goods, wealth, and ideas between East and West, making Manila, the capital of the Philippines, one of the most important ports in the world at the time. While the trade benefited Spain immensely, it also created lasting economic connections between the Americas, Asia, and Europe, leading to the rise of a global trade network that would define the world for centuries. 3. Spain's religious influence, Catholicism in Asia. In addition to its commercial interests, Spain was deeply committed to spreading Catholicism in the Philippines. Missionaries, especially Jesuits, Franciscans, and Augustinians, established schools, churches, and hospitals across the archipelago. By the time Spain left the Philippines in 1898, Catholicism had become deeply entrenched in Filipino society, and it remains the dominant religion in the country to this day. The spread of Catholicism also had profound cultural and social implications for the Philippines. Catholic churches and schools became centers of influence, shaping everything from education to politics. However, the Spanish missionary efforts were not always welcomed by the indigenous population, and tensions occasionally arose between the local Filipinos and Spanish missionaries. The Spanish crown also used the church as a tool to help govern the islands, with clergy often serving as local administrators. Over time, however, the close ties between the Spanish church and the crown became a source of discontent, especially as the local Filipino population began to demand greater control over religious and political affairs. 4. The Philippines as a strategic military base. Beyond trade and religion, the Philippines held strategic military importance for Spain. The Spanish used the Philippines as a base for their naval expeditions in Asia, particularly to defend against potential threats from European rivals, such as the Dutch and the British, as well as Asian powers like China and Japan. In the 17th century, Spain faced challenges from the Dutch East India Company, which was competing for control of trade routes in Asia. The Philippines provided a convenient base of operations to counter Dutch and later British attempts to establish their own colonies in the region. The Spanish maintained a military presence in the Philippines, fortifying key islands and keeping a close watch on potential threats to their empire. Additionally, the Philippines served as a launching point for Spanish exploration in the Pacific. Spanish expeditions explored areas such as Micronesia, Guam, and the Mariana Islands, expanding Spain's influence across the Pacific. 5. Challenges and conflicts, revolts and resistance. Despite the Philippines' economic importance to Spain, colonial rule in the islands was not without its challenges. Local resistance to Spanish rule was widespread throughout the 300 years of Spanish occupation. There were numerous revolts and uprisings against Spanish authorities, particularly among indigenous Filipino groups who resented foreign rule and the imposition of taxes and forced labor. One of the most famous revolts was the Philippine Revolution of 1896, which ultimately led to the Philippine independence movement. Figures like Andres Bonifacio and José Rizal became national heroes, leading efforts to push for greater independence from Spanish rule. The revolution was catalyzed by the resentment of colonial policies, including forced labor and religious control, and inspired by broader global movements for independence. The Philippine Revolution culminated in the Spanish-American War of 1898, which resulted in Spain's defeat by the United States. The Treaty of Paris, 1898, ended Spanish rule in the Philippines, and the archipelago was ceded to the United States, marking the end of Spain's imperial presence in Asia. 6. Legacy of Spain's rule in the Philippines. Although Spain lost its colony in 1898, its influence in the Philippines remains visible today in various aspects of Filipino culture, from the widespread use of the Spanish language, though it has largely been replaced by Filipino and English, to Catholic traditions and architecture. Spanish architectural influence can still be seen in the old churches, forts, and buildings scattered throughout the Philippines. Moreover, the Philippines' early role in global trade as a part of the Manila Galleon trade laid the groundwork for the Philippines' future as a key player in the Pacific trade network. Spanish rule also introduced new systems of governance, education, and law, which would later influence the development of the country after independence. 7. Conclusion: Spain's forgotten empire in Asia. The story of Spain's empire in Asia and its connection to the Philippines is a fascinating chapter in the broader history of European imperialism. Spain's strategic interest in the Philippines, coupled with the success of the Manila Galleon trade and the spread of Catholicism, made the archipelago a crucial part of Spain's global empire. However, the Philippines also faced resistance and struggle throughout its colonial period, and the legacy of Spanish rule remains a mixed one, with both positive and negative impacts on the country's development. In our next video, we'll dive deeper into the Spanish colonial legacy and how it shaped modern Filipino identity. Stay tuned.